Hello everyone, it's Daryl. How you guys doing today? This is going to be one of my first videos with this new Galaxy Note camera. We're going to see how this works out. But it should be about the same as what you're used to from what I'm telling. Today we're going to be working on the 2004 Aztek, which my son Dan owns, and now the fuel pump has failed. At least I believe the fuel pump has failed. It's suddenly stopped running. If I spray some starting fluid into the intake, it starts right up. I've checked both the fuel pump fuses and the fuel pump relay under the hood, and those are all good. There's still no fuel pump action or fuel pump pressure, which is leading me to believe it probably is a fuel pump. There's 288,000 miles on this car, so I'm also tending to believe it's probably the original fuel pump. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and do the fuel pump without totally removing the gas tank. I saw some guides online on how to do this, and what we're going to do is we're going to release the gas tank straps on the right side, the passenger side, and let that edge of the gas tank fall down toward the ground, and then we should be able to change the fuel pump and access it from the top of the tank reaching right in without having to take off any of the wiring harness or pull the tank out of its position. The only thing we'll have to do is disconnect the rubber fuel net coupler and let the tank drop down about 5 inches so we can access the top of it. So that's the plan. And you see it's here in my driveway, which is a little wet and muddy today. It's about 45 degrees out here the first week of January in Michigan, which is really unusually warm for this time of year, and I'm really happy about that. Otherwise I probably wouldn't be out here working on this. I'd make the kid be out here doing it. But we're gonna get the floor jack out here, and we're gonna lift the rear axle or frame, haven't decided yet, of the car up on the passenger side, because that's where we're gonna be doing most of the work at. And we'll put a couple jack stands under there too for safety purposes. And we're gonna go at it. The nuts that hold the gas tank straps on are 15 millimeter, and then the screw clamps that hold the filler neck onto the tank are 8 millimeter. And that should be all the real tools we need to take this off, other than a hammer and screwdriver or chisel to drive off the retaining ring on the fuel pump neck. The Azteks 01 through 04 all use the same fuel pump, except for about midway through the 04 model year they switched to a different style fuel pump. Alright, we may have found a problem here. In the process of disassembling the fuel tank, which I haven't got to yet, I removed the main supply wire just, for the sake of doing it so I didn't break anything. When I pulled it out, water came pouring out of it. And if we look at it here, we can see that several of the terminals are totally corroded and green. And if we look up in here, we see at least 2, maybe 3 of the contact wires inside have rotted totally off. And one of those, I checked on the wiring diagram, is actually for the fuel pump supply voltage. So I'm thinking we really don't need this $50 fuel pump I just bought. I'm thinking we need to repair the wiring in this harness connector here. Alright, this junction block here, the one with the broken terminals in it, is about $50 or $60 new. And then you still have to cut the wires off and splice it into place, and then rivet it back into the body with these rivets here. What I'm going to do, instead of doing that, I'm going to cut it back here. Not actually cut it. I'm going to separate the wires back here, and then use these tap connectors through the body down to the other side of the connector block that plugs into here, and then I will tap into the wires just behind the connector block using another pet of these. So we're going to use 6 of these and 3 short pieces of wire, and we're going to bypass this whole assembly here, which is corroded beyond use, which should be a really easy thing to do if I can trace which wires go back to the color code on this. That's going to be the only hard part. Forgive the chainsaw in the background, but the neighbor's cutting down a tree. But you can see we have effected a temporary repair using splice connectors. And what I did was, we removed the passenger side seat, And we have some trim panels here. Let's get some more light. There we go. Let's move this trim panel here and this trim piece there. And what we did was lift up the carpet, and from there we could reach the top side of the junction box. You can see it in there. And we cut the wires, the 3 wires that were bad, as they go into the plug assembly, and ran jumper wires down around to the other side of the plug to access those 3 wires on the other side. And we're going to come back out now. We got to put this all back together, but come back in. Got the key in the ignition. That's a mess. This car is always a mess. My kid's a slob, but that's okay. Here we go. Ready? Alright, we're going to test it now. The key's on. I just heard the fuel pump come on and power up. And look at that. The replacement junction block is available online for $50 or $60, and I imagine you could pick it up at a scrapyard for probably a fraction of that. Here's the harness diagram. The 3 broken wires that we encountered in this repair were for the main power supply to the fuel pump, the fuel gauge sending unit, and the solenoid for the vapor control, which was setting off a check engine light as well. So my final advice is, don't be in a hurry to jump to conclusions, and be certain that you know what's wrong with something before you've done all the checks to make sure it's just not something simple that you might otherwise overlook. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.